Hey guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli, and I'm excited to present to you this conversation I had with one of our Alec's Academy graduates, Nick, where we talk about how to overcome fear in poker, how to play your best, developing a solid mental routine that will keep you focused and playing your A game, the role of nutrition in poker, and ultimately how to create a winning poker lifestyle and balance within poker and your outside life as well. So much here. I'm sure you're going to find some key takeaways. For more about this stuff that we discuss in the video, I referenced links in the description. You can check that out below, as well as timestamps for this video as well, so you can skip to the content that's most exciting to you. Finally, this conversation is based on the content that Nick benefited from and went through in our Alec's Academy program, which is really the ultimate poker business school to help people make poker into a profitable side hustle, full-time endeavor, and ultimately achieve their goals. Our next cohort is now open. You can learn more and apply at the link in the description. Without further ado, I bring you this conversation with Nick. Nick, what's up? Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So for those watching, you are from Canada and you play a mixture of live and online poker, correct?
Correct, yeah. I prefer live poker, but since the whole COVID thing, everything's shutting down, online is the only way to play.
Yes, you are in the same boat as many. So I want to dive right in and talk to you about a few things that you've changed in your poker routine, mindset, lifestyle that have helped you improve your game. So specifically, like, what would you say one thing that you've changed about your poker routine that has helped you lately? Like maybe some actionable takeaways that you've got.
Well, the biggest thing is that I actually have a poker routine now. Before I would just, whenever I would just feel like playing, I would either go to the casino and play or just hop online. But now I realize with the help of the course that it starts the day before. Making sure you eat well the day before, making sure you get a good night's sleep, you wake up feeling rested and you're feeling good. And then before I play, go through, do a little physical exercise to get the blood flowing to the brain, all that kind of stuff. Make sure I eat well, make sure I'm feeling good, and make sure I have the proper energy level.
That's awesome. And I don't know about you, for me, it's like, I found that like having to do this in poker has really helped in other aspects of things in my life too. And I just find that like the routine is helpful, like intrinsically eating well is going to make you feel better. And when you feel better and you think clearer, you're going to make better decisions. So there is intrinsic value in the activities of developing a poker routine. And I've talked a lot about this, but I also find that there's like a mental component to just deciding that now it's time to play poker. And the fact that you are creating a routine gives that experience reverence, because you're saying this is important enough that I'm going to dedicate time to optimize myself to be in the best state of mind possible to play. And then that carries with you to the game. So that when you're at the table, at least for me, I feel like when I'm at the table, I'm like, wow, I built up this moment to get here. And like, now I'm ready. And like, I'm taking this seriously because I'm not just, going from transitional one activity with another, showing up at the casino and playing and hoping everything goes well. I'm methodically going about my day or my time to be in the best state of mind possible. Have you found that kind of subconscious almost ritual as well?
Yeah, like when I get there, after I do my routine, I get there and I'm focused, like I'm dialed in, and that translates into everyday life as well. Because like when if you just wake up, go to work, come home, whatever. But like if you have a routine that you do every day, it puts you in that frame of mind where you're focused and you're just gonna like get the tasks that you need to get done.
Yeah, totally. I've written a lot about this too. I have a tweet that is like a summary of my routine and a blog post on habits in the morning that I do. I'll link those both in the description. But basically, it's not my general philosophy, and this is what I encourage in the course, is that it's not like my routine's the best or this is the optimal routine. It's more about figuring out like, really understanding yourself and what things work and testing out a bunch of different things and just committing to saying, you know what, instead of just going about it randomly, haphazardly, just showing up, I'm going to like commit to start the process of documenting my journey or thinking about this and trying to improve it. And just that shift in your mindset is enough, because that'll inevitably lead you down the rabbit hole of saying, okay, is it better to eat this or that? Or should I should I work out or should I not work out? And then you might go further down the rabbit hole and say, which types of workouts are best and what is the duration? I love the process of optimization. So I go very far down the rabbit hole of tweaking a bunch of little tiny variables to try and find edges and ways to improve and feel better and ultimately make the best decisions, perform my best. But it's just that mindset shift. So for anyone watching and saying like, well, what should I start with? What should I do? You could read what I do and take whatever works for me or anyone else that you follow or admire, fine. But it's not about copying them. It's about understanding why they have that routine in the beginning and why they have a system, and then figuring out your own system by understanding yourself, your own biology, your own habits, your own lifestyle, what really works for you. So I think that's a big part of it. And I'm glad you took that away. Sweet. So I know we talked about this in the past, and you mentioned that one of your biggest takeaways was overcoming fear and using that to make strategic decisions in poker. And it's something that I think people don't talk enough about, but it's actually really, really important, because I think a lot of times at least that I've noticed in big pots, or especially if you're in public or on TV, someone's watching, but even if you're just in a pot where the rest of the table's watching and there's a lot at stake, it's one thing to intellectually know what the correct play is, especially in retrospect. You can look back and say, well, I should have jammed there. But in real time, there might be that voice in your head that's holding you back saying, well, what if I get called? Or what if I look stupid? Or what if I lose this money? And that's all just fear. It's all just fear manifesting in different ways. I know you've really worked a lot on this and found some great takeaways. How has that process evolved for you, and how have you improved this?
Well, so I didn't realize that I had some fear related to poker. A big one for me was fear of folding, and then you gave us a little exercise in that module saying, okay, go sit down at a table or online or whatever and play the lowest stakes possible, and just sit there for 2-3 hours, whatever it is, and just fold every single hand. And I did that. It took me like 2.5, 3 hours. I can't remember, 3.5, whatever it was. But I just sat there. I played online, and I sat down at a 1 cent, 2 cent table, so that, obviously doesn't affect my bankroll losing $2 or whatever, right? And I just sat there and folded every single hand. And yeah, that was huge for me. I folded aces 4 times. I folded kings 3 times, ace king 8 or 9 times, and just it was just that was probably the biggest thing for me. And then the second biggest thing was just fear of looking stupid. Like you 3-bet pre-flop, and I feel like I have to try to push people around. Like I can't, like I shouldn't fold. Like I should just, I'm 3-betting pre-flop, so I've got the best hand, and I should just keep betting or raising whoever puts money into the pot. And I was just spewing chips like crazy. So that was very big for me as well.
Yeah, that's great. And there's a lot of different types of fear. I think we talk about 6 different types in there, and you touched on 2 of them, as well as some exercises for them. But yeah, that fear of folding one is a big one, and it's kind of like, it kind of feels silly and stupid. You're like, why am I doing this? But then afterward, you realize like, oh wow, sometimes the things that are the most challenging to do, if you prove to yourself, even in any circumstance, that you can overcome them, then it just becomes easier the next time, because you've built this snowball and you've like, well, I've already done that. I've already done 10 times something 10 times crazier than what I'm trying to do in this moment, like folding aces. right? Like you can never fold aces, right? So if you've already folded aces, even as a trial or an experiment, it just like builds this confidence within you that you can do it. And so I think like there's a good, I kind of based this exercise on a quote that like an idea that's just like, the thing that you're the most, there's like a philosophy, I think in Eastern philosophy is like the thing that you're most like addicted to, or that you like or that need the most, you should just give it up and just try it and see what it's like to be without that. So if you're like, I always have to do this at this time in the morning, otherwise, I can't function. Always have to have my coffee, or I always have to have dessert. I always have to end the day with this. Just don't do that for a month and just like see what that's like. And then if you prove to yourself that you can, that your mind over matter, like you are stronger than that weakness within yourself, that you think you need this thing to function, which is just a learned response, a learned habit. But if you can learn to function without that, you can, you overpower that and you rewrite that, then you can do anything. You don't have these mental limitations. And so I think that exercise is I've had a lot of people say that that's really helpful. So I would encourage people to do that if you're struggling with that folding fear. That's great. That leads me to transition to the mental game, which is I wanted to know, I know we talked a lot about the mental game, the power routine. What is a mental game tactic that you can share that you've used to improve your mental game and your focus at the table that's worked really well for you?
So I would always get bored at the table and then just lose focus. So with the program, Creating Your Power Routine, basically what I do is I say it's about three sentences that I say to myself before every hand. I'll take a deep breath and then I'll say this little mantra to myself, and it helps me refocus. It helps me pay attention to what's going on. And especially when I'm not in the hand, that's when I found that I would just kind of, just look around the room and pay attention to another table, something's going on, whatever. But now when I say my little phrase, I'm focused and I'm paying attention, and I noticed, oh, this guy's 3-betting often, or this guy's calling all the time pre-flop. He's sticky. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's been huge for me.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so much to the power routine. And I think you just kind of scratched the surface of just this one concept, which is just like, if there's this concept of like monkey mind that I learned about in meditation, like right in the beginning, where it's just like the mind left unchecked will just randomly think about all these obscure things, especially in a game like poker, where there's a lot of time where you're just not doing anything. And to play poker correctly is actually quite boring, like in terms of like the amount of action that you're taking relative to the amount of time that you're there. If you think about it, you only play 15% of hands. So, and you only get 30 hands an hour. So you're going to play 2-3 hands an hour. So what are you doing the rest of the time? In fact, when I worked with one of my first mental coaches, he used to train golfers, and he said, I work with golfers on the mental game. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. How does that work? And he's like, well, a round of golf lasts, 4 hours. How much time are you swinging? You're swinging for what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I don't know. But he's like, what do you do the other 3 hours and 50 minutes? He's like, that's what I focus on. And it just made so much sense to me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I play poker. It's the exact same thing. Like, how many decisions, like real decisions, do you make in a day at the poker table? You might make some trivial ones like folding 7 deuce off, but that's not really a decision. How many real decisions do you make? You might make like 5, 10, 15 decisions that are going to change the scope of your session. And so having a system that gets you in the right state of mind to make those decisions is super important. And it's just one of those things that's like, it's like the routine. Like, most people never stop to think about this. They just kind of like go, and then they show up at the big moment and just hope to make the best decision. And it's like, how is that going to work? And so I think just even having that little thing that you say to yourself in between hands, just to keep you in that zone, right? So it's like releasing the charge of the last hand, whatever tilt or frustration or annoyance or just lack of focus. You're kind of like, your mind wandered off. It's coming back to the center and saying, okay, look, now I have a new hand. And the analogy I like to use is a tennis player that is in between points. So if you think about a tennis player in between points, they'll have a moment where there's a reprieve, where they just kind of like stop focused. They call for the towel. They look at their box or whatever. They're kind of like not in the zone of the game. But then they walk back up to the line and they get back in that flow. They get back in that pregame routine. That's what I call the power routine, where it's like they have this moment where they go through this ritual that gets them in the right state to serve the point and play the point. And that's what that's what people should implement in between one hand of poker and another. Thinking like a tennis player, what would a tennis player do in between points and before he serves to get ready? And then let me create that system to implement so that in every hand of poker I play, I'm in that zone and playing that A game. So that's awesome that you found some benefit in that as well.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention as well, and you just kind of touched on it, is meditation. When you meditate, what I do, I meditate before I play for about 10, 15 minutes or so. And I find that really helps to clear my mind. And when I meditate before, and then when I get at the table and in between hands and I'm doing my little mantra, it helps the meditation, because I help clear my mind before the game. It helps me focus a little more. I find that if I don't meditate before I play, and I just try to say my little mantra before each hand, it still works, but it doesn't work as well. My mind is still kind of all over the place, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. And I think it's really interesting, the integration of your natural life. Like, it's almost like this very thin grayish line where, like, where does your non-poker life and your poker life like separate? It's almost like, well, meditation is something I would do even if I didn't play poker, but then it helps because I play poker. And so it's like this integration of your natural life and your poker life, and making those things like coincide. And ultimately what helps one is going to help the other, right? Like poker, at a high level, you're like a mental performance athlete, right? I don't want to glorify poker, but like, I mean, you're playing a high level mental performance game. And so if you can optimize your body and your mind and your state to be playing well at a high level of that, surely that's going to help at your job or relationship or your interactions, right? If you could be non-reactive and not tilt at the poker table, you might take that non-reactivity to another aspect of your life, right? So like all these things sort of intersect, and there's a marriage between a lot of these different things. You made another great point, but I talked too much and I forgot what I was going to say. For me, I totally agree about meditation. Like, I wake up in fifth gear, and like I do a lot of different tasks, and I'm saying this because I know a lot of people have other things in their life beside poker. And so I work with a lot of clients and a lot of people in Alec's Academy that have poker as a number two. And so that means that there's another thing in their life, like leave aside relationships or kids, like things that you obviously have responsibilities for, but just there's another thing in their life that is occupying mental bandwidth. And going from that thing where you're thinking about problem solving or creativity, or you're an entrepreneur or like whatever it is that you're doing in your normal life, and then going from that directly to poker, where you have this new world. Poker is its own world, and you have to start to play well at a high level in that world. That transition, sometimes I think for me, there's a lot of things I can do to get me from one world to another, but the fastest, like if I have 2 hours, I mean, it's easy to get ready to play poker. But if I have 10 minutes, I think meditation is the fastest, most efficient thing to do, because when you sit there, close your mind, you close your eyes and you let your thoughts, it's like this, like emergence of all the thoughts coming out, that like this overflow of inputs that we have throughout our life with social media or emails and like conversations and ideas. It's like allowing those things to come to the surface and just like settle, and then space to be created for you to say, okay, all of those thoughts that I've been building up subconsciously through these millions of inputs I've had throughout the day have just come to the surface and been released, and now I can just go focus on the game. So I think that's super important, even more so for people that have other things in their life that they're doing aside from poker, as that transition. So I would really implore people to try that out. What apps or processes work best for you? Is there a specific app that you like or something?
There's one app called Primed Mind, which you recommended in the course. That one's a really good one. And my wife actually is also pretty big into meditation, so she's helped me implement a little meditation practice into my life as well.
Awesome. That's great. I also love Headspace. as well as Waking Up by Sam Harris. Both of them are great. Primed is also great too. We recommend several. So check that out too. So we talked about some strategies you use to consistently play your A game. What other habit have you changed as well that you say is like the equivalent of the meditation for poker? Is there another habit that comes to mind that works really well?
Nutrition.
Yeah.
That's changed. I've changed that quite a bit, actually. I used to never really care what I ate. I was never worried about like gaining weight or anything like that. Like I'm a pretty small guy, whatever, but I'd eat whatever I was craving. And now that I'm eating better, eating a lot more fruits and vegetables and like real food, not processed food, and I just feel so much better. Like I'm ready to take on the day, and I've got more energy, so which means I can play more poker, which is nice. And yeah, it's changed just basically the way I feel.
Yeah, I think looking at food as fuel, like 80, depends on your life and your goals and how much you want to work and those things. But at least for some part of your life, your productive life, looking at food as fuel, like let's say Monday through Friday or however you want to look at it. And then like food is enjoyment as a different category. So like, what are you optimizing for in this moment? Is it sheer pleasure and enjoyment? Fine. Have a 5-course meal with whatever you want and wine and whatever. But are you optimizing for mental performance? Food has to be fuel. And so I think just categorically thinking about what you're going for as a priority number one when you put food in your body. And obviously like people think like they have to choose between taste and like fuel and like taste, like they have to compromise one or the other. But I think you get to a point where you feel so good and you start to crave these foods, and then you start to like change the way that your taste buds are hardwired, and then over time you start to actually prefer the foods that are healthy. So it's like this win-win. And I think people think that because there's just potentially a transition period if people are eating a ton of processed food and sugar and like junk, that there is that transition period, but they think that that's like a long term, like, well, I never want to feel this way all the time. But that intermittent period is like such a drop in the bucket compared to the long-term sustainability and how amazing you can feel and perform and look and all those things that come with healthy diet. So I'm totally on that same page. I wanted to talk to you about like your study habits and how is having a system helped improve your game and decision-making and or your study habits that have gone along with that. I know we talked about the process of making decisions in the group calls. How has that kind of like helped your strategic decision-making?
Well, before the course, I never really knew how to study, especially like my own hand review sort of thing. So with, like you said, in the group calls, we go through it and kind of use the hand range funnel. That just using the hand range funnel alone has improved my game immensely. Like, I can now put people on a range of hands, and I'm still a work in progress. Don't get me wrong. I'm by no means an expert at this, but I can now put people on a range and make better decisions, because that's basically what poker is all about, is making the best decision possible. And you've mentioned that so many times, and that you've drilled that into our heads. And
for sure. So what's like the hand range funnel is the process we teach at Conscious Poker to help people put others on ranges. We have a free PDF download. I'll link it in the description. Or you could opt in anywhere at consciouspoker.com. You'll get it for free. I'll also put a link on how to study poker, a process that I use to help people study as well. That's a free blog post. It'll also be in the description. So what is the, like, you mentioned you didn't have a system or a study habit. What is like is there any like takeaways that you learned that help you put people on ranges? Like there's so many things to consider, right? And I know that so many people are like overwhelmed with Should I think about game theory or exploitative play or the image or the history or whatever? Is there any like one thing that you kind of fall back on that really helps you just put people on ranges or make decisions in poker that has really been beneficial?
Well, I try to think of it as kind of like what would I do in this situation? Like if I were playing against me, sort of thing, and then I'll create a hand range for my opponent, and then I'll put it into I use Flopzilla, so I'll put it into that and calculate. Okay, here's his range. Here's the amount of combos. Here's my equity, all that kind of stuff, and then obviously as the hand goes on, the range narrows, and then I'll play around with it. I'll say, okay, this is the card that came out, but what if this card came out instead? How does that change everything? So that's the biggest thing I got out of how to study.
I love that. Yeah, just optimizing your study process for saying, okay, well, this is what I would do in this one situation, but what if the situation was different? What if a different card came? And that way, in your process of studying, with 5 extra minutes of work, you can change the river card, understand the equities, and prepare yourself for new scenarios that you've never faced. And this is how poker players make decisions in new circumstances they've never been in and do it at a high level, because you're never going to play the same hand twice. There's never going to be the same cards, run out, person, history, stack sizes, but you can prepare yourself for new scenarios by doing these calculations. The other thing I think you touched on, which is so simple, but it's so often overlooked in practice, is just throwing everything out the window. There's so much to think about in poker, but like sometimes it could be as simple as what you said, which is like, what would I do if I were my opponent? What would he think about me in this moment? So it's just saying like, okay, what does he have? What's his hand range? I don't know. It's like confusing. There's so much to think about, but what would I do if I were him? And that's likely what he would do as well, right? Because people tend to behave the same way. Like people tend to bluff in the same spots. They tend to value bet in certain spots. They tend to not bluff on certain cards or certain textured boards. So for example, if the board pairs on the river, the top card, people don't bluff as often because it's like it's a card that could have hit the other guy's range. So if a board is, Jack 5 deuce and the turn's a 5 and the river's a jack, it's not a board that people bluff often. So if you think about what would I do in that spot? Would I really bluff this card? Would I bluff here? No. Well, maybe he's not bluffing there either. And sometimes it's as simple as that. So I think that's a really good takeaway that people can implement. Like if you feel like a deer in headlights on the river and there's a huge pot and the pressure's on and the clock is called and the guy's all in and you're like, what do I do? Just think about what would you do if you were in your opponent's shoes? And the chances are he's probably doing that. Then you could go further down the rabbit hole and say, well, I'm not like him because of this or our history and that. But start with that high level 30,000 foot view. And sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, and it's also helped me understand my ranges better.
Yeah, definitely, right? Because you kind of reverse the situation. You can see the situation a little more clearly. Yeah. So what would you, I think last question here wrapping up, what advice would you have for other aspiring players looking to turn poker into a side hustle or business? What are some like best practices that you weren't aware of that I know a lot of people out there want to turn poker into a side hustle. Like they want to have, a certain income goal where it'll be like, okay, it'd be really cool if I could make whatever it is, X amount on the side, a couple hundred, couple thousand playing poker. So what systems or advice would you have for someone trying to do that?
Well, obviously you have to study and put the work in. But the one thing I really liked about Alec Academy is that you were there to see us every step of the way. You basically held us accountable, and then with everybody else in the group, all the students, we kind of all held each other accountable as well by sharing our work, asking questions, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so you get out what you put in, obviously, right? With anything, like Kevin in your last show said that he's bought courses before, and I've done this too. I've bought courses before, and then like a week or two in, I'm like, I'm done with this sort of thing, because there was no one coaching you along the way. Like no one, like you're doing it all on your own. But with Alec Academy, like I said, you're in there keeping us accountable. Coach Mike was huge in that as well. And then all the students, just when Kevin or Bo or TJ or whatever would share their worksheets with us, like I kind of got excited about it again, right? Like, oh, this is what they're doing. Well, I got to do this to keep up with them, or just stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the plug. That's amazing. You're really kind. I want to make it actionable. I mean, obviously, if you guys want to join Alec's Academy, great. But for people that can or that want to go about it on their own, I think a great thing to take away is what the systems that we've created at Alec's Academy that really help people get success and why it's different than other courses. And you really hit it on the head with the community and the accountability. So if you think about your own behavior in your own life, it's like, how much easier is it to grab a friend or partner and be like, we're going to do this? How much easier is it to succeed at whatever that is that you're trying to do because of that other person? And what is it about the fact that there's another person there that ultimately helps you succeed? Because it's not necessarily the action that is different, right? Like if, for example, you want to get in shape, you can do that on your own just as easily, like in the sense that you can follow a bodybuilding program or a diet plan or whatever. But if you have someone else to do it, it's for sure having the coaching obviously is a different level. But it's also just having the accountability. It's knowing that you're going about it with someone else and that you guys are going to raise the standard of each other because neither one wants to slip below the other person. And this is not like, necessarily like egoic competition. It's just like healthy level of like, hey, look, we're in this together. Let's try and both make each other better for a win-win scenario that we're both creating. And I think it's like that when you see someone else share a worksheet and they have like, this whole thing written out, and you're like, wow, I want to do that too. Like I see that they can do it. Someone else can do it. That gives me confidence that I can do it. And so I think grabbing a friend to go through what poker goals that you want to set for yourself and that you want to achieve, whether it's studying, whether it's the business plan, whether it's working on your routine or the mental game, it's saying like, hey, look, let's do this together. Let me create a WhatsApp group or join a Facebook group or find a couple friends that I'm close with in my, my local casino or whatever. And let's all say, hey, look, let's all do something actionable and then report back to each other with tangible results. So not just saying like, hey, you try this, I'll try this, cool. But it's saying, okay, look, let's write this down, let's document it, and let's have a starting baseline, and then let's measure our improvement over time. And I think if you create those systems of what gets measured gets managed, meaning what you're actually measuring yourself doing, you can then see improvements on because you have a baseline to draw from. And then you plug in to have a community of people or others to hold you accountable to raise your standards and to motivate each other to keep going and do that together. If you create that 1-2, I think that's a very winning combination.
Yeah, I agree. You need someone there with you to keep you accountable, and that pushes you to do better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's so true. It's why, think about just hiring a personal trainer. Like, the fact that you're going to show up is like 80% of it, right? It's like Woody Allen's quote, 80% of success is showing up. So find a way that you will show up to do the work, to go through the process, to improve, whatever that is for you. But everyone operates differently and everyone learns differently, but you have to hack yourself to know what is it that's going to make you show up. And then you have to create systems to ensure that you do that, because we're a product of our environment. So if you create an environment where you're going to succeed, it's just so much easier. It's just inevitable. You just kind of show up and go through the motions, and that's it. But you have to create an environment where you're going to show up. So that's definitely something for people to take away. Nick, any last wisdom takeaways? Putting you on the spot.
I actually went through that fear module again, and I tweaked the questions just a little bit to kind of simulate this situation. And I'm like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? Yeah, I may look like an idiot, but who cares? Like, I don't know anybody who's going to watch this, whatever, stuff like that, right? So yeah, it was amazing to me how much of the course actually translates into just real life. Does
That's
that make
really
sense?
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are some of the most meaningful like takeaways. I think when people like, it's cool if people are like, hey, look, I'm better at hand reading. I could put someone on a range. I won more money at poker. Like those things are cool. But I think for me, what's like disproportionately more rewarding are the comments I get about people that have like improved some area of themselves or some aspect of their own life or their own journey that they've taken from the teachings or from the course or from the content, and then they've applied to their own life outside of poker, and they're like, wow, I never thought about it like this, but actually these things really coincide. And that's what we talked about before. It's like, where does the line from poker end and the line from your personal life, your personal development start? And at a high level, like, to be better at poker, you have to grow as a person. You have to be more patient. You have to be more humble. You have to be more disciplined. You have to study more. And like, those are habits or character traits that really, help you as a person and as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, this is really meaningful. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, you too.
Guys, thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, give it a like and a thumbs up. That would mean the world. If you want more about Alec's Academy and how to take your poker game to the next level, click the link below in the description, learn more, and apply. I'll see you in the next cohort. Thanks for your attention. Cheers.